Welcome to the Personal Pension Radio Podcast, where you get unconventional insights into wealth building and retirement that actually work. Discover data-driven strategies and learn from a wealth of experience so that you can take your retirement to the next level. Now, here's your host. He was once bitten by a harbor seal, the income engineer, Kraig Strom.
Okay, we are back on Personal Pension Radio, joined in the studio. Jason Purvis again on the show. Say hello.
Well, hello, the fantastic Kraig Strom. How are you?
Yeah, you had to use the fantastic, right?
I did.
That's my word, right? So I can't get away from the word fantastic. So welcome back to Personal Pension Radio. Those of you joining us for the first time, Personal Pension Radio is a show focused on bringing together the experts and the information, the knowledge you need to help business owners, professionals, to help people build and protect your wealth, your lifestyle today and in retirement. Because isn't that what we're looking for, is retirement someday? But if we get into retirement and we don't actually have the lifestyle that we really wanted or the lifestyle we had before we retired, not that exciting, right, Jason?
Not at all.
Not at all. So we are now broadcasting from our new location. As you heard on our last episode, we are broadcasting from Mr. Foley's van today under an overpass in Southern California. Mr. Foley, motivational speaker extraordinaire, has graciously allowed us to use his van to broadcast our show. Brought to you by personalpensionradio.com. Don't forget to check out the website. Get on over there. And thank you to our listeners. We've got listeners now all over the world, internationally. Thanks to those folks listening in France, Portugal, again in the Philippines. We've got folks in Indiana, all the way down to Florida, Texas, and again, New York. Thanks to all of you who are listening. We really appreciate you being here.
Are those Indianans considered international?
No, I actually just rolled right into the United States crowd as well. So I don't know. Some folks from Indiana, specifically Indianapolis, in a certain large white tall tower there in Indianapolis, they might be considered international. You know who you are. Listen, a really quick, short disclosure. We'll have the full-blown disclosure at the end of the show, but a short disclosure. Don't act on, and it's really important, don't act on advice that you hear on the radio or TV or some financial blog or a podcast or a YouTube video. Make sure that you're actually meeting with someone. Meet with a qualified financial advisor who will get to know you, who will get to know your specific situation before you act on or buy a product or engage in a particular process. It's something we're going to talk about today as we go through a case study with Jason, talking about one of his client experiences. But definitely, as you're listening, we want you to take away a lot of awesome information and then go to Personal Pension Radio and request an actual appointment. We can do a web meeting, go-to-meeting. If you're in our local area, we'll meet in person. But keep that in mind. And
if you're in Hawaii, we will certainly take the trip to meet you.
Yes, you know what? That's entirely possible. I do actually have clients in Hawaii. It's just terrible if I have to go visit them. So
especially in the winter, right?
Yeah, especially in the winter. Now, it's Hawaii is one of my favorite places. So having lived there in college, Hawaii is an awesome one. So tell you what, let's jump in, get to know Jason a bit. He was actually with us back on the podcast early on, and he actually, part of our Personal Pension Radio team, had a really interesting experience recently with one of his clients, husband and wife, that he had suggested perhaps that we do a podcast episode to go through a case study together. So let's get to know Jason a bit. Tell us, for the audience who hasn't actually heard you before, tell us about your family, where you're from. Give us a little background.
Certainly. Well, I was born and raised here in Southern California and enjoy a typical Southern California lifestyle, like getting out, being active, football, basketball, hiking, those types of things. But my biggest joy right now is watching little baby Purvis developing inside of my wife, Carissa, right now.
That's right. So Jason and his wife, Carissa, actually have a new arrival who scheduled to arrive when?
December 25th arrival.
No way, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. This is new information right now in the podcast world. Did not realize that there was a 25th arrival. Now, my nephew was scheduled to arrive on the 25th, and my sister would have nothing of it. So she made him wait until the 27th.
Well, it's not ultimately in our hands, but we look forward to introducing our little guy to the world.
So that kind of, and you mentioned little guy, so you actually know it's a boy coming.
Yes, we do.
See, so your passion for football and basketball might have already started entering your mind with the little one, yes?
Certainly.
It also kind of changes your perspective on the work that we do. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jason and I are both financial advisors, and we both work with a variety of different clients, from husbands and wives to single young folks to business owners over the years. And there is something about looking at your own family and your own kids that really changes your perspective.
Well, it certainly begins to turn your thoughts towards legacy and what am I building that's going to last? What's going to be there and available for my young man when I'm no longer here?
Yeah.
Over the next 18, 20, 25 years, I'm going to be providing for his life, and then he's going to go out away from me and develop his own family and develop his own personal standing. But is there anything in my life that's going to outlast me to be there for him when he's 50, 60 years old and he's having kids? Is there anything that's going to be available for them?
See, that's a good perspective. Somebody had actually said this to me once, and I'm going to forget where this bit of education came from, but I will not take credit for it. They said that the best example, the best financial example that we could provide for our children is not necessarily wealth left behind, but on the other hand, a great example left behind is one where their parents were financially well-educated, financially well-planned, that they took care of their own financial situation so that they did not leave behind a legacy of poor financial misdeeds or mistakes, or they were in retirement where they couldn't actually live well and enjoy life. The best possible example we could leave is to actually take really good care of our own financial house and teach them that example. Right?
I'd agree.
Yeah, so I'm hoping, so Jason and I are in completely different sides of the world here when it comes to the kids, because he's got one on the way, and tomorrow I load up all of my daughter's stuff in my truck and drive her to Flagstaff, Arizona to drop her off for her freshman year in college. It's a very different time. So I'm hoping that when she gets there, she's remembered some of the lessons over the last 17 years. We shall see. So
that could be a follow-up episode.
That could be a follow-up. It might be a therapy episode after she's been there for a while. So tell me, Jason, what is your passion in our industry, in the financial world? There's a lot of nuances and various different nooks and crannies of the financial world, but what is it about your position in the financial world that really has driven a passion in you?
Well, really, at the end of the day, it's about raising the awareness for families of the opportunity for increased income in retirement. So many people have fallen into the run-of-the-mill, everyday tracks. And what happens when I meet with them, so often we find that there's money that literally is vanishing because they're not choosing to implement different strategies and they're just going along with the pack.
Right. It's the standard pack mentality that when you look at, how many times have we both done this? You look at Money Magazine at the dentist office. I did that. I was at the dentist office, and I look at Money Magazine, and there was, sure enough, on the front page, an article about how to save for retirement. And you read it, and the answer was, put more money in your 401k and just save more money. Well, and then I go to another appointment with my daughter. She needed to go to a dermatologist appointment. And there in the waiting room is, I think, Forbes magazine. And Forbes has an article about how to do it. And sure enough, the answer, it's magic. Just got to save more money. It's the same answer, just a little different twist on the exact same answer every time.
And it's as if there was only 2 or 3 financial products available in the world, because that's all that mainstream media focuses on. And the reality is there's so much more than that. And there's so much available. There are so many other powerful assets that can be added into people's retirement portfolios to increase their income in retirement.
Right, to actually enhance what they're already doing. And that's the interesting piece about it, is that it doesn't take, a humongous change to affect tremendous benefit increases in a retirement income plan. It doesn't. And that brought us to our topic today, which is a case study with actually a husband and wife, a couple that Jason actually will tell us a little bit about and how he met them. But this is retirement income preparation in action. This is actually going to be a great conversation to go through. Just, what you as a listener, for example, who are wondering what the process might look like, might feel like, Jason actually is going to go through that today and just take us through that conversation. So why don't we start by kind of giving us a description of this husband and wife and kind of how you met them and how that conversation started.
Yeah, well, we actually know each other through a community organization that we're involved in. And as we were talking one day, the idea of retirement came up, and I mentioned that it's something that I specialize in.
So when you say it came up, and kind of give me a general context, because I think a lot of folks don't understand sometimes how easy it is or how common it is that this comes up in conversation.
Well, they had received some letters in the mail for their current planning team, and
okay, so they actually already had perhaps an investment accounts and investment people, and they got some letters, touching base with them.
Right. And what they had realized is that this same team that was sending them letters, they had tried to reach out to 2 or 3 times over the phone and had no response from them. So They began to look for somebody who would be a little bit more responsive to them.
Gotcha. So, I've heard that actually multiple times, that I've actually heard situations where, and have actually had personal connections with clients who their account balances were below a certain number, and their financial services provider changed their regulations, and the next thing you know, their account was shifted off to an out-of-state representative. So these folks were not really getting that hands-on touch that they needed, so they were starting to kind of put the feelers out.
Right, and it's amazing to me, with all of our technology and availability to really be anywhere and any time, that advisors take so flippantly the fact that these families have trusted them with what's going to end up being 30 years of life, and you can't return a phone call?
You mean retirement, yes.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I've asked, and everybody here, if you're driving your car, don't raise your hand. Well, you guess you could raise one hand. But is it possible nowadays, if you're a husband and wife, and you've got both are generally healthy folks, that one of them, husband or wife, could live to be 90 or 95 years old nowadays? Well, yeah. Right? So what Jason is saying is, this is a huge decision, a huge obstacle for people, and it does bother both of us equally, that certain advisors really take it very passively or even flippantly. They just they don't really pay attention to how important the income side of the conversation is. So this couple, they're married, of course.
Yes.
Are they in their what age category are we in?
Well, they're in their mid-50s.
Mid-50s. Okay, what do they both what do they do? Are they both professionals?
Yeah, well, he's a business owner and she's a professional within her industry.
Okay, all right, gotcha. And so they have kids? Are they empty nesters?
Empty nesters. Kids are gone and on the way, so they're kind of at that sweet spot where they're at the peak of their earning.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
have the most freedom
Right.
within that earning. They don't have to pay for a kid through college, or they're not still paying off long-term old debt. They're just at a really nice space in life, which made it very fun to be able to work with them.
Gotcha. When you had the opportunity to sit down, can you kind of run through what were some of the hot button issues for them? We know that non-responsive current advisor was something that bothered them, but what were their hot button issues? Where were they in their mind at that point when you sat down with them?
Yeah, well, initially, the premise that we got together around was that direct hand-holding process through retirement, as well as there was an account that was kind of just floating around out there from a previous job that they hadn't done anything with.
Like an old 401k?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We've heard that. If you have old 401ks just floating around out there, could be a very expensive thing floating around out there. Make sure that you're having someone take a look at that. Make sure you're looking at your options. So that was one of those items.
Yeah. And then, of course, really what everybody was looking for through the process is the opportunity to increase the income in retirement.
Well, now, to be fair, did they actually, let me ask, did they actually really know what they were on track for income in retirement, or they just had a general guess?
Well, they were involved in one of these target date funds.
Okay, so buzzwords, right, and these are definitions just in case people don't know what it is. A target date fund is generally a mutual fund or something that's found inside a 401k, or you can purchase them through mutual fund companies that are generally set where the investments are rebalanced based on how old you are and how close you are to retirement.
Right, so the older you get, the more conservative the investments automatically become. And based on that, they were getting some projections of what their income was going to be.
Okay, gotcha.
However, that income was going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 45% less than the current income that they have while they're working.
Okay, so let's make sure get that straight. So their own basic projections from their investment company was telling them to expect a 30% haircut in their their retirement income. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and Craig, mind you, that's the best case scenario. There was a 30 to 45% decrease coming to them.
Yeah, see, that's the part that must have just sort of shocked the heck out of them, right? That must have really woken them up and caused them some serious concern.
Well, it certainly wasn't what they wanted to do, but I'll tell you this, like so many other people out there, they had kind of just accepted that, I guess this is how it's going to be.
Yeah, see, and we've talked about that on this show many times. We've said it, we've commented, guests have said it. The idea that post-working or post-retirement, you get to somehow magically jump into a world where life costs less, where you can actually expect to live on less. Somebody said, well, I won't have a mortgage. Okay, so you won't have a mortgage, but you will have 365 days of vacation to spend money, to go to the movies, to travel, to whatever. So the idea that your expenses will drop in retirement is just doesn't exist. It's not true.
Right. And I think I might have mentioned this the last time we were together, but someone once asked me the question, do you spend more money on the weekend or during the work week?
Yes, I remember that. It was that same question someone posed to me. I spend more money on the weekend and on vacation.
Right. I mean, just last weekend, my wife and I, we don't typically eat out. She's a great cook, so we stay home and enjoy that. But just this last weekend, we went from birthday party to baby shower to another event, and you're on the road all day. You're spending money on gas. You're spending money on gifts for other people. And then you've got to eat because you come home and you're exhausted.
Right.
And, a lot of money goes out on the weekend. And ultimately, what is retirement but 7 days of a weekend? Because you're not going to work.
Right, exactly. You have a lot more time to actually think about what to buy on Amazon, right?
That's right.
Now, did these folks actually have any of their own, I don't know how to say it, personal biases or personal ideas on how to fix the problem? I mean, clearly their own financial institution was alerting them to, hey, get ready for a huge haircut. You're going to retire on a lot less money than you might want. So now they're kind of upset by that. What did they bring to the table maybe as their own solution or their own bias?
Ultimately, they didn't have a solution.
Oh, okay.
They kind of just thought this is the way it's got to be.
Gotcha.
And they were looking at how to downsize life. Well, maybe we'll sell this house and we'll move in with the kids, or we'll, just get a motorhome and travel the U.S. And, that sounds really nice, traveling the U.S. in a motorhome. And I might want to do that for 8 months, 9 months. But at some point, you just want to be home.
Right.
And here's the thing. What if we could work your retirement strategy in such a way that you had the option to travel the U.S. in a motorhome for 8 months and could still come home to this beautiful home that we're sitting in and having this meeting at?
Exactly. If there was a way, right? And so that was kind of the question that led you to the conversations from that point on, right?
Right. And I wanted to show them that this projection that they have currently not only was sad, but it could be improved on.
Yeah,
it could
so it didn't have to be their reality.
Correct.
That's the key. Throw away the Money magazine, the Forbes magazine, and the Bloomberg that have the exact same answer as this couple's financial firm, right? The financial firm had projected basically in the exact same Monte Carlo simulation method that Wall Street and the financial world in general has been using for the last decades. So throw that away. There is another option. So how did that now? So we know where they were on track for on their current direction. Take us through the process, if you will. What was the process as far as helping them along the way to come to this new realization, this new future?
Well, first we have to get them to understand what Monte Carlo means and what it means for them. So we were able, through our presentation software and opportunities of meeting together, because all of our clients go through at least a 3-step process prior to taking action and making decision. Because my goal, every time I sit down with a client in this type of environment, is to educate, equip, and empower.
That's great.
And that's a 3-step process. The first time we meet together, you need to educate me on what's important to you. And I need to educate you on how our process is going to go going forward. We kind of have a rule within our practice that our clients never do anything they don't understand.
No, that's fantastic. And I think that Jason just laid something out there that ties back into the short disclaimer that we put into the show, that you don't take advice based on something you heard on the radio or on just one podcast. That what I'm understanding, Jason, is you went through what sounds like a series of probably 3 different conversations and meetings, a process, before getting to the point where this couple was ready to implement anything, to take action.
Correct.
Yeah, see, and that's it. That you've got to go through a process where you're really gaining a deep understanding from the perspective of the advisor understanding the client and the client understanding the process and strategy. So take us through that now.
So we get them to understand that what Monte Carlo means is that ultimately, no matter how big your retirement savings account is, because the volatility in the market, the risk of living too long, the opportunities that the market is going to take a downturn at the worst possible time for you, which we call sequence risk.
Gotcha. And then let's make sure to be clear. When we say Monte Carlo, although you might think of a casino, We're actually talking about the Monte Carlo simulation that is, I won't say universally used, but in the vast majority of your standard, typical, contemporary financial advisory
Firms.
practitioners and firms, they use a Monte Carlo simulation that calculates the odds that you will run out of money or not in a chosen distribution plan. So that's what Jason is referring to there.
But it's funny, Craig, you make the allusion to the Monte Carlo casino,
Right.
which is somewhat of a appropriate connection to what Monte Carlo reality means for people. It means that you're taking a little bit of a gamble on your income if you choose to draw 8, 9, 10% from your asset year after year.
Absolutely. And we've talked about this before, that if you try and draw more than 4%, out of a pool of income assets, whether it's 401k, the proceeds of business, real estate, whatever it is, if you try to draw more than 4% in a typical retirement income distribution scenario, you have anywhere from a 12 to 20% chance that you or your spouse will run out of money before you die. That is some serious risk. That's some serious risk.
That's not the flight I signed up for.
That's right. I would not get on that plane. So now you've gone through this process. Kind of, how does it look now? Kind of take us through as we look at this, as they look at their retirement income projections now with this new plan in place. Kind of take us look at how that works now.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, as we're going through this process and I showed them, well, here's what your retirement income is going to look like. Their response was, so you're going to tell us we need to save more, huh?
Oh, see, that's it. That is the answer all the time, right? It's the answer they see in Money Magazine. It's the answer they see in all of the different publications. You just need to save more.
Yeah, and I said, saving more is an option that you can consider at your best interest. However, my objective when we came in here, my commitment to you was that I would show you a process by which we could increase your retirement income 30 to 50% without any additional out-of-pocket expense for you.
So without actually having to sacrifice lifestyle today, by just using the savings that they were already going to be doing, the net benefit or the result was a substantial improvement, I'm guessing.
Certainly was. And what we did is we rebalanced their savings plans, and we didn't tell them you have to save more. Our focus was save more efficiently.
Oh, that's excellent. It's one of my favorite things in the financial planning world that we don't talk about enough. We do here, at Personal Pension Radio and just in general in our practices, that efficiency is first and foremost critically important. That if you're not watching the efficiencies, you're just letting things slip by.
And I think it's important, Craig, that we maybe take a couple minutes and define what some of the inefficiencies are in a standard retirement process. Because what people forget about is, number one, who owns the first portion of your 401k?
Yeah, absolutely, Uncle Sam. The government owns the first chunk of money out of your IRA or your 401k, which is the primary retirement savings vehicle for most people who have one or have the option to save for retirement. So taxes is what you're saying is a huge inefficiency.
Huge inefficiency on taxation. And then beyond that, what about the inefficiencies caused by sequence risk?
Okay, so sequence risk, for those who are brand new to the show, if you haven't already heard this, sequence risk is, in retirement distribution world, you have to worry about what rate of return do you get year by year. It's not the average rate of return. Average rate of return only works when you're not drawing money out. So the sequence of your returns can create some huge inefficiencies, because if you have to draw money out of your income assets in a year that the market went down, you are your own worst inefficiency.
Right. And I think we could take even this week as a microcosm of, let's say, a 7-year period. What if the last 7 days represented a 7-year period? And when we had Friday, Thursday, and Monday all being record-breaking dramatic lows.
Right. For those of you listening to this podcast 1,000 years from now, we're talking about August of 2015 when this is being recorded. We just had an epic correction, albeit it's now leveled off a bit, but the United States stock market and the rest of the world all decided to take a little break, and they all slipped off the hammock this last few days.
Right, and we've seen these cases where it doesn't just last 3 days, but it lasts 3 years, 4 years, or even longer.
Right.
So, like I said, let's take a microcosm of this 7-day period. What if you retired on Wednesday?
Gotcha. See, our crash that we're talking about, this little correction, pretty big one actually, the largest 3-day correction on record for the
Correct.
United States stock market. If that had happened, which it started on Thursday, Friday, if it had happened if you retired on Wednesday, the day before that happened. Okay, I gotcha. Go ahead.
What would your account look like now?
Well, if you, at that point, you say retirement, that means that you started distributing money from those accounts.
Correct. So now I'm no longer adding in my $20,000, $30,000 a year, but hey, I've got to draw a lifestyle. And if I was contributing somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000, you got to think at least my lifestyle's somewhere in the neighborhood of...
Oh, probably 40 or 50 plus, right? Because you got to replace your income.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you have, if you had retired on Wednesday and you need to draw your lifestyle, the stock market or the investment world goes down Thursday, Friday, and then Monday. It goes down. And then you also take money out of the account at the same time. That is a huge inefficiency. That account is going to struggle badly to recover.
Yeah, and any financial advisor who's done the research will tell you the most important time for your retirement account, the most critical time for it is the 5 years prior and the 5 years after your actual retirement. If you have one of these correction events in those years, the impact is huge on the rest of your retirement. We all know a little bit about the time value of money and that concept. So if you have a huge loss the first year you retire, you're never going to make that money back.
It's going to be very difficult because you're going to continue to go after income. So sequence risk, major issue. And that's where the Monte Carlo simulation comes in, that I think really the general use of the Monte Carlo simulation is to convince people to take less money out of their accounts, to take less money, because if you try and take more, that sequence risk gets to be a serious problem. So these folks now, they understand Monte Carlo. They understand sequence risk. And now you show them a new option and you say, we don't have to save any more. Now, let me ask you this question. Did they look at that and say, wait a minute? Did they get it all a little suspicious? You're showing them I imagine a substantial improvement in their retirement income projection. Did they look at it and say, wait a minute, that's too good to be true?
Yeah, so at the end of that third meeting, I showed them, we'll call them the Johnsons, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. Based on our rebalancing of your retirement savings vehicles, your income is looking at a $300,000 increase over the 30 years of your retirement.
So let's make sure that everybody gets that and don't get intimidated by the big number. Think about a 25 to 30 year retirement nowadays. We're going to live long times in retirement, right? So you're saying that without saving any more, they just had to allocate things and rebalance their savings for retirement income differently, and their new income in retirement is now $300,000 more than they were on track for without a plan in place.
Correct. And
wow.
So when they saw that, they were very excited and said, hey, let's move forward. Sign me up, so to speak. And so we began our processing that we need to go through to make sure that all of these projections could become reality. And over the course of the next 7 to 10 days, as we're processing that, they stepped away from it a little bit and they thought, wow, maybe this is too good to be true. And they brought up what they thought were just going to be kind of the punching holes through the products and services and plans and ultimately the strategy that we were putting in place.
Okay. All right.
So they were trying to punch holes in it, and they were being nice to me because, like I said, we're friends from this community organization and we're going to see each other. And they're like, well, Jason, we're just kind of not sure. And I said, well, hey, what are the questions? Bring it on.
Gotcha.
We spent the next 30 minutes together and they laid out a bunch of questions and I laid out a bunch of answers.
Do you think that the questions, as I've seen this before, do you think some of these questions were kind of driven by that media message, that message from financial entertainers and just the general message out there that the retirement income plan that you had laid out is not the mainstream message? So it was just because it's different? Do you think that's where those questions came from?
Yeah, I think it really stemmed from the long-time path that, hey, this is what I've been doing my whole life, and now you're asking me to redirect this and rebalance a little bit.
Right.
And kind of the herd mentality. And you know what? We all do it. Maybe it's not in your financial plan, but you deal with herd mentality every day on the freeway. Yeah. You kind of go with the flow of traffic. You just move along the way everybody's moving along. But when someone comes into the mix, let's continue that freeway analogy. Someone comes into the mix and they shake things up like the motorcycle who gets to go through the middle of the lanes. I mean, people have outrage over that because I can't believe they're doing that. Exactly. Well, here in California, totally legal.
Right.
And it's okay. They have a more efficient path.
Absolutely.
Because they've rebalanced the size of their vehicle.
Right.
And they're using something different.
They're just doing something different. It is hard to accept change. And yet these folks asked some questions that came from that doubt, that we're introducing change into the mix. And then what happened next after you went through that conversation where you kind of answered their questions, you went through that review again? What was the next thing that they brought up?
Well, the reality is I welcome the questions because, again, our clients don't do anything they don't understand. So I wanted to hear their questions and I embraced them and walked them through each step along the way. And what happened is not only did they have their questions answered, but they had the light bulb moment where they got to see this thing works.
Absolutely. Yeah. So they actually saw it. And so did they have any additional kind of aha moments, when they saw that?
Well, now when we started the process, I told them we're going to do this with no additional out-of-pocket expense, which we did, and that resulted in $300,000 increased retirement income over their retirement. When they had that aha moment, they decided, you know what?
They're going to save a bit more, aren't they?
Yeah.
So what was the net improvement? They had $300,000 of additional retirement income now on track for. So by saving extra in their overall retirement income plan, what was their new increase?
$700,000.
That's amazing. $700,000. So now they're on track for $700,000 more retirement income over their retirement. How much extra? So let's soak this up because I do know the answer to this particular question here for sure. How much extra did they have to save in their retirement income savings plan to increase that projection from 300 to 700?
Well, let me ask you a question. If I told you I'm going to give you another $400,000,
right,
and it was going to cost you $600 a month
of additional savings.
Okay. For 10 years.
I would say that's a great deal.
I would think so.
That's an outstanding deal. I'm going to have a substantially better long-term retirement income. So what was the actual number?
$200.
So $200 a month more added to their retirement income savings. Now, that legitimately does perhaps come out of some lifestyle.
Well, that was a choice that they made.
Yeah, maybe they don't go to dinner as much. Maybe they go to see a dollar movie instead of a full price. But still, $200, $2,400 a year added into their retirement income planning move the needle on their retirement income options by $400,000 of extra retirement income they can look forward to.
Right.
That's amazing. It really
now
is.
This was a plan that they were not only accepting, but they were excited about.
Yes.
And wanting to see put in place as fast as possible.
So remember when we started, I was thinking back, they were being told to expect 20 or 30% below. So they're going to cut their lifestyle. So now they're on track for
keeping their lifestyle right where it is and getting to enjoy those retirement years.
That's instead of having to settle for less, these folks are now on track to actually be able to settle for the best possible retirement they could have and be legitimately retired without having to sacrifice lifestyle. This has been a great opportunity to go through this with you, Jason. I appreciate you bringing this idea. Now, how do we get in touch? That's what everybody in the audience should be asking. How do we get in touch with Jason? How do you get in touch with us? If you want to know more and you want to dig into how in the world did Jason help this couple make such a tremendous change to their retirement income plan, go to personalpensionradio.com. Fill out the request form that contact us. It's right there on the page, and get in touch. And we'll have Jason get back in touch with you. We'll put you right on the phone. Doesn't matter where you are in the country. We'll get you on a go-to meeting, web-based. We can't work out of the country yet. Don't think we'll be licensed out of the country anytime soon. But anybody in the United States hearing our voices, you should be asking yourselves what your numbers look like. So go to Personal Pension Radio and check that out. Jason, any final thoughts as you wrap up and as we wrap up together here?
Well, I just really want to encourage people out there to take the opportunity to lift up your eyes a little bit. We kind of get into the routine practices of our world and just follow the rest of the pack. But it takes a leader to step away from the pack and do what's best for your family. Do what's best for your personal lifestyle. And when I see the opportunities that we create here at Personal Pension Radio in our practice, we just help people.
Oh, yeah. I appreciate
it's so
that.
rewarding to walk away from that family, the husband and wife, just huge smiles on their face because they're seeing that they don't have to settle for less.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I really do. I have to say, I'll second that. Totally love the work that we do because it's a message that unfortunately doesn't exist in most of the financial world out there. So you have to know there are options. And if you don't know what your current target is, go ask somebody what your Monte Carlo income target is, and then get in touch with us so we can show you what it could be. You do not have to settle for less. Until next time, thanks for joining us here on Personal Pension Radio.
Thank you for listening to the Personal Pension Radio Podcast. If you missed anything during the show, that's okay. We took the notes for you. Check the show notes for links, offers, and a full transcript. And don't forget to head over to personalpensionradio.com and download your free retirement income report. While you're there, we'd appreciate some iTunes love. Please leave us a fantastic rating on iTunes by going to personalpensionradio.com/iTunes. Thanks again for listening.